welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something core to growth,
Yeah.
personal or professional, how we actually steer ourselves.
Yeah, how we move forward.
Exactly. And we've got some really interesting stuff lined up, insights from YouTube leadership coaches, personal development folks, speakers, plus this text that digs into the power of the questions we ask.
Which is surprisingly fundamental.
It really is. So the mission for you, our listener tuning into Grit and Growth, is to pull out the actionable bits. We want to give you tools for like a better mindset, figuring out what actually matters to you and, well, putting you in control.
Kind of a shortcut, right? From feeling stuck to making things happen.
That's the idea. So, okay, let's dive in.
What's really striking, I think, is this common thread, across all these different sources. It's this idea that we actually have a lot more say in our growth than we might think.
Mm-hmm.
It really starts with how we talk to ourselves, how we interact with the world, and these sources offer some pretty concrete ways to do that.
Totally agree. And a really powerful place to start seems to be just understanding the questions we ask ourselves. One source we looked at, a summary of Change Your Questions, Change Your Life, really shines a light on this.
Right.
It kind of boils down our internal state to operating from either a learner mindset or a judge mindset. It's kind of amazing how just the questions we ask can send us down such different paths.
It really is. Our internal chatter, it's basically just questions, right?
Yeah.
Constantly. And those questions can either, open doors or just slam them shut.
Yeah.
The judge mindset, well, fundamentally, it's about pointing fingers, finding fault.
Right. Those automatic critical thoughts like, why am I such a failure? Or why are they so stupid? It's like you're holding court in your head and someone's always guilty. And the source is really clear. Those kinds of questions, they're basically dead ends. They just trap you in negativity, in what it calls a pit of judgment.
Precisely. Judge questions, they tend to look backward, right? At blame, at condemnation. And that inherently stops you from seeing solutions or learning anything. It just breeds defensiveness, no growth there.
Okay, so then you contrast that with learner questions. These are much more about curiosity, about moving forward.
Yes.
Let's think about shifting to things like, okay, what actually happened here? Or what are the plain facts? Maybe even what assumptions am I making? It's like switching from prosecutor to investigator.
Exactly that. The key thing with learner questions is that genuine desire to understand, like the source points out, asking, what are my choices now? Or what's the best thing to do? Those actively guide you toward, well, rational decisions, finding solutions. And those empathy questions, too, like what might they be thinking or needing, that helps build bridges, find those win-win situations.
And I thought this is super practical, the ABCC choice process. It's just a quick way to interrupt that judger voice.
Right.
You acknowledge you're judging. B is breathe and get curious. And C is choose learner questions, like hitting pause, then play on a better track.
It's a great little mental tool. It creates that moment of awareness, doesn't it? Lets you step back from just reacting and choose a more thoughtful approach.
The source also mentions having switching questions handy. Calls them a life preserver. For when you feel yourself, sinking into that negative spiral. They use this example of being in a tough meeting or conversation. Instead of just fuming inside like, wow, me, or who does she think she is? You deliberately switch gears. Ask yourself, okay, what does she actually need? Or maybe, how else could I possibly see this?
That's such a good illustration. That tiny shift in your internal question changes your whole experience, potentially. You stop feeding the anger and assumptions, and you open up to maybe understanding or finding a better way through it.
And it's not about, memorizing a specific list. The source mentions 12 powerful questions, sure. And they're useful for different scenarios, feeling stuck, frustrated, wanting change. Yeah. But the main thing is just starting to weave this way of questioning, this learner approach, into your daily thinking.
Exactly. They're like prompts, aren't they? To look at things differently, your role, other people's views, what's possible next. It's really about building that habit of curiosity. That's what fuels growth.
Okay, so that's about asking better questions for a growth mindset.
Right.
But what about figuring out which direction to even point that growth?
Yes. The what do I want question.
Right. Our next source, a clip from Mel Robbins, really dives into that feeling, I just don't know what I want. Which, so many people feel that, right?
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of being adrift or just not fulfilled, it often stems from a gap between what really excites us and, well, all the limits we put on ourselves, often without even realizing it. Robbins just calls those out.
Yeah, she doesn't pull punches. She basically says, if you think you don't know what you want, That's probably, in her words, total nonsense.
Uh-huh.
Her point is, it's usually not that you lack desire, it's that you have this pyre of self-doubt and roadblocks in the way. You know, I'm not smart enough, I'm too old, how could I make money doing that? Sound familiar?
Those limiting beliefs, they act like filters, don't they? They stop us from even admitting what we truly want. They create this sort of resignation, like certain things are just off the table.
So her fix, she asked this really, really potent question. If money was totally off the table and you didn't give a damn what anyone else thought, what's the one thing you would absolutely love to be doing? It's about peeling back all that external stuff, the critics inside and out, and just listening to what genuinely excites you.
That's the core of it, getting to that intrinsic motivation, that gut feeling, without immediately worrying about the how or what people will say, just letting yourself dream a bit, even if it sounds crazy at first.
And she gives examples, right? Like wanting to be a photographer or open a cafe or even like travel the world juggling. It's about giving yourself permission to even consider those things that bring you joy.
And she offers another angle too, which I thought was clever. Pay attention to who makes you feel envious.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, not in a negative way, but like, what is it about them or what they do that sparks that little pang? It's data. It's telling you something about your own unmet desires.
Using envy as a compass. I like that. Okay, so say you do that, you identify something you'd love. Then what? Just sit and wish.
No, not at all. Robbins is clear. The very next step is just to explore it. Doesn't mean you have to quit your job tomorrow.
Right.
It means taking one small, manageable step to learn more.
Like finding an online course, maybe.
Yes.
Or just Googling it. Or maybe reaching out to someone who actually does that thing.
Exactly that. Test the waters, see how it feels, build momentum with tiny, consistent actions. She talks about the power of even just 10 minutes a day. That adds up. Those little explorations over time can lead to really big shifts.
Which actually leads perfectly into our next piece. It's a TEDx talk by Adam Leipzig about finding your life purpose. And he kicks off with this, wow, this really striking statistic.
Yeah, that was something.
He said 80% of his college classmates, highly educated, successful people, were unhappy. Felt like they kind of wasted their lives because they didn't know their purpose. That's sobering.
It really is. It completely flips the script on, the idea that just ticking the boxes of success automatically equals happiness. These people had the degrees, the jobs, presumably the money, but still felt empty.
And he contrasts them with the other 20% who were happier. And often they'd studied things just because they loved learning about them, not for a specific career path. They ended up living, as he put it, more expansively.
It really highlights that intrinsic drive again, doesn't it? Aligning what you do with what genuinely interests you. The happier group seemed guided by something deeper, some sense of purpose, even if they couldn't always name it right away.
And Leipzig says these happier folks, they knew the answers to 5 key things about their purpose. He boils it down to 5 actually pretty simple questions. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you do it for? What do those people want or need? And the big one, how do they change as a result of what you do?
It's such a powerful framework. And notice only 2 questions are about you, who you are, what you do.
Right.
The other 3, they're all looking outward, focused on the people you serve, the impact you make.
Exactly. It's not just navel-gazing. He really stresses that the successful, fulfilled people, they prioritize who they serve. The idea is if you focus on making a positive difference for others, your own purpose, and often your own support, kind of falls into place.
It shifts the whole focus from what can I get to what can I give. Purpose isn't just about feeling good yourself. It's about contributing something meaningful.
And I love how he ties this into having a better elevator pitch. He says, focus on that last question, how people change because of you. So instead of just saying, I'm a graphic designer, maybe it's, I help businesses communicate their vision clearly, or not just, I'm a therapist, but I help people build healthier relationships. It immediately sounds more engaging, more meaningful.
It absolutely does. It moves past the job title to the actual value, the transformation you offer. It communicates impact, much more likely to spark a real conversation.
This is all really, really empowering stuff. But, sometimes even if you have a sense of purpose, you can just get bogged down in overthinking things.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our last piece, the idea of shifting from asking why to asking how.
Yes. Such a seemingly minor tweak in language, but potentially huge impact. The source points out that why questions, well, they often chain us to the past, don't they?
Totally.
They can trigger stress. They can actually limit our thinking, our creativity. It's easy to end up ruminating, feeling like a victim when you're stuck on why.
It's so true. Why did this have to happen? Why am I always hitting this wall?
Yeah.
Those questions just circle around blame or misfortune. They don't really offer a way out.
Whereas how questions, they're inherently about the future, about action. They push us towards solutions, towards possibilities. They tap into our own resources, foster that sense of agency, of growth.
Exactly. Asking, okay, how can I get past this? Or how can I learn this skill? It immediately puts your brain to work on finding a way forward. It's about taking the wheel, right? Looking for solutions instead of just staring at the problem.
And the source makes a really key point. It's not that why has no value. For figuring out root causes, maybe, or seeing connections, why can be useful.
Sure.
But when it comes to actually changing things in your own life, getting unstuck, how is the engine? It builds momentum. It gets you back to choosing those empowering learner questions we talked about at the start. It's all connected.
It really is. Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive on growth strategies, we've hit on the huge power of the questions we ask ourselves, shifting from judge to learner. We looked at digging deep, honestly, to find out what we truly want, getting past those limiting voices.
Yeah, the Mel Robbins piece.
Right. And the framework for purpose, focusing on who we serve and the change we made for them, the Leipzig talk.
5 questions.
Exactly. And finally, the simple but powerful switch from focusing on why things are the way they are to how we can move forward.
And what's really cool is how they all weave together, you know? That learner mindset makes you more open to exploring your desires, your purpose, and focusing on how gives you the practical tool to actually do something about it.
This has been, really insightful. And for you listening, on Grit and Growth, here's something to chew on. Think about one area, just one, where you usually get stuck asking why. Maybe it's a work thing, a personal goal, whatever. Now just try reframing that why into a how. Seriously, just try it. How can I? What changes? What new ideas or paths pop up when you focus on solutions, on action, instead of the problem or the past?
Yeah, what emerges?
And maybe think about how knowing your who, what, whom, their needs, and the change you bring. How could that give you a clearer roadmap for your own grit and growth journey? Lots to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
It's been great.
And hey, if this was helpful, if you got something valuable out of it, please do subscribe to Grit and Growth. Give us a like, maybe share it with someone else who's on this path too. It really helps us reach more people.